Hello, hello. I'm inviting you today to put down your sword. I'll put mine down if you put yours down. Yeah, right. Let's all take a few minutes today to put down our swords, yeah, to drop our defenses, to put down our automatic weapons, our pistols, rifles, baseball bats, long prepared arguments against an attack from someone that may or may not ever arise. All of our defenses, let's just take a few minutes here and set them to the side. Set them to the side and engage in some really deep contemplation of the words that are about to come from this image on your screen, which is not coming from me, Reverend Tomas Garza, not at all. A Course in Miracles is such a blessing, isn't it? It's such a profound gift. So if this is something that you've been studying for a long time, you'll know that. And if this is something that you're new to, it's very profound. Yeah. If you're just looking and considering this, or you practice other spiritual traditions, there's still a lot, quite a lot that you can gain from this video, from all these videos, and from the course itself. It's a self-study curriculum, which is beautiful. And today we're going to talk about how we get in our own way. We're going to talk about laying our defenses to the side, setting them aside, and allowing truth simply to be as it is. We're in chapter 2 of the text, part 2, the atonement as defense. And as we saw in the last video, we can defend both truth and error. The questions, which do we value the most? So I invite you to go back and take a look at that. We look at the constructive use of denial in that video. In fact, the use of denial that if we're going to awaken, we need to put into practice is the denial of anything not of God to affect us. So if you're just popping in, what's the atonement? In A Course in Miracles, we're invited to accept atonement for ourselves. Meaning we accept that this perceived separation from God never happened. It never took place. We've never left our source. We accept this for ourselves. You can also see atonement as healing. And as we talk about here in paragraphs 4 and 5 of this section of the text, it's love. The atonement principle is one of love. When we accept the truth of who we really are for ourselves, we're accepting that love is who we are. God's love is who we are. And there's no difference between God's love and our love. It's not something that one possesses. It simply is. We're accepting this. And every time we set our defenses to the side, every time we put down our swords, so to speak, we open to truth, which is what the entire spiritual path is. Setting your sword to the side, putting it back in its scabbard and putting it away is setting aside your ego. Dropping an argument long constructed and thought out, painstakingly thought out against somebody. What are you going to say when somebody says this, if they say that? Well, they haven't said it. So here in the present moment, we waste ourselves constructing a defense for a blow that may never fall. Don't we? It's an invitation to just take a few minutes out of your busy life and contemplate what it will be like when you set your defenses to the side, which of course you don't have to do right now. So with the atonement as a defense, it's the only defense, and again, we can defend truth or error, whichever we value. It's the only defense that cannot harm. It cannot harm us. It's not destructive. And why is that? It's because we did not make it. Everything that we make up here in the world has the potential to harm us. And it does, because we're making things in this world from an ego perspective, from a faulty, erroneous frame of reference, thinking that we're individuals, thinking that we're independent, self-sustaining survival units competing for what we deem to be scarce resources against other supposedly independent, self-sustaining survival units. And we defend personal territory. We claim it. We define and defend personal territory like a dog in a fenced enclosure. Really. That explains all of the conflict that occurs in the world. The atonement principle is one of love, which is incapable of harming. Love simply is. It doesn't have an opposite, really. In truth, here in the world, love and fear seem to be opposites, but they're not really. Of those choices, only love is real, fear is not. So we set it to the side and accept atonement for ourselves. We accept that this perceived separation from God never, in fact, took place. We do make decisions here in the present moment. There's only one decision that we make: love or fear, God or the ego, light or dark, life or death. If you want to see it that way, then it's one way to see it, isn't it? Seriously. So accepting atonement is a defense, yes. The only one that's not destructive. And what is really cool about it is we can't misuse it. We can't screw it up like we do everything else. We can only refuse it. It can't be misused, but it can be refused. In other words, we don't have to accept atonement for ourselves. You don't have to believe a single word that appears to be coming out of my mouth, right? You don't have to believe anything that you read in any spiritual text or see on any YouTube video or listen to on a podcast anywhere, anytime. You don't have to believe that. Whatever. If it resonates with you, it resonates with you. If it doesn't, so be it. There are many doors in spirituality. We can refuse the call. We can refuse to forgive. We can refuse to accept atonement for ourselves. We can refuse to set our defenses to the side. We can keep our sword drawn and sharpened. All right, we can. We can do that. It's your choice. Just as it's my choice, if that's what I choose, and I do not make that choice. But we've all had moments in our lives, some relationships. Sometimes we've had periods of this lifetime, haven't we? Decades even of having our swords drawn, sleeping with one eye open, so to speak, waiting for the other shoe to drop, in a constant state of agitation and panic, knowing that we're going to have to defend ourselves against imminent attack. When this deep inner voice tells you it doesn't have to be this way, that's true. It does not have to be that way. So, unlike the defenses that we make in the world, the atonement can only heal. It's not a double-edged sword that can harm us. Think about our defenses in the world. When we think that someone's going to attack us, and we go over scenario after scenario in our minds before this conversation ever takes place, it's a supposed future event, and we go over all of the parameters and as many possibilities as we can think of, and our response, we are wasting the present moment on fear. We tell ourselves that we're constructing our defenses, but what's going on? We're harming ourselves. We're digging the hole even deeper, so to speak. We're seeing ourselves as a body, as an ego, as me, an individual, under attack from another individual. The word another is really an important one to focus on here. That's an error. So as we construct our defenses against an attack that may never come, we're simply shutting ourselves off even further from the truth. There is no other. There is no one to attack or be attacked. One equals one. Happily, the only math required in this course that we accept atonement for yourself. All of the world's defenses are capable of harming us. Think about a sword. You could cut yourself with your own sword. In fact, you could fall on your own sword and run yourself through. You could. You can shoot yourself with your own gun. You can destroy yourself with your own attack thoughts. We don't often think of it this way when we're running around thinking we're an independent, self-sustaining survival unit. So ultimately, happily, there's a limit placed on our ability to miscreate. In other words, we can only screw ourselves up so much and for so long, happily. And ultimately, our accepting atonement for ourselves renders all learning, including this course, unnecessary. This course operates in the illusion where it's necessary. Ultimately, it's not necessary, because once we set the ego aside, once we forgive, once we extend the miracle to our brother and engage in true forgiveness again and again and again, that's putting your sword down, that's putting your pistol down, that's setting aside that fictitious argument. Once we make a habit of that and begin to set the ego aside, we keep going and set it aside. Ultimately, there's no more learning that needs to be done. Who we are simply is. And what we're doing is we're removing the barriers to our awareness of that. Heaven is an awareness of perfect love, which is who you are. So even if this material seems highly bizarre to you, if it seems impossible, if it seems weird or far out, all we have to do is allow ourselves to just entertain it, even for a few moments. in the workbook for students, Jesus tells us that we don't have to believe the ideas. We don't have to understand them intellectually, and often when we're starting out, we don't at all. They seem to make no sense at all. You don't have to believe it. All we're asked to do is simply to apply the idea as directed. To follow simple directions is one way of putting it. Now, this is something that can certainly be refused, can't it? We're all adults. We all have a stubborn streak, and it shows up in different ways. But I want to promise you, and I do promise you, that you can learn this course. Jesus tells us we are capable of doing anything he asks us to do. And you're capable of miracles because you are a miracle worker. It doesn't mean that you can lift spaceships out of the swamp like Yoda necessarily. It doesn't make any difference. You don't have to be able to heal the sick or raise the dead or move mountains with your thought. I mean, like literally pick them up and replace them at a different point in the map. You don't have to be able to do any of that. A miracle is a shift. It is a simple shift from fear to love, from hatred to love, from separation to oneness, from the ego to God, from dark to light, and on and on and on. It's a simple shift, any shift, and there is no order of difficulty among them. That's the first sentence of this text after the introduction. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. They're all the same. One's not more impressive than another, although it might appear that way to the body's eyes. One's not special compared to another. There's no comparison. One's not hotter and sexier and stronger and juicier and more pleasurable than another. It's not that way. It's not that way. You are a miracle worker. So I thank you for taking a few minutes out of your busy day or busy evening just to entertain these ideas, to entertain the message of the Holy Spirit. That's why this video series exists, because what you see before you is a pixelated, projected image on your screen, whatever device you're watching this on. It's YouTube. What you're hearing is your inner teacher. So allow your inner teacher to speak to you today of peace, of the peace of God, of who you really are, and set your sword down, even if it's just for a few seconds. Drop that planned argument. Forgive. Take a couple of deep breaths and just give thanks for who you really are. There are many ways to express this love here in the world. The love is the constant. It's the source. It's the cause. And the world that we appear to see is the effect. When we go to work on the cause, on the mind, the effect changes. It can't help but change. It's like replacing a film in a movie projector, from a war-torn film full of suffering to one of peace and love. Really. That's what spiritual practice is, no matter what tradition or traditions you may follow. I invite you to get in touch with your inner teacher and give your inner teacher, give your guides a moment today to speak to you of the truth of who you really are. All right. Thank you, as always, for joining me. The subscription button's right down here. That's the red arrow. And I thank all of you who have joined me recently from all over the world. It's beautiful that you're here. And the most important thing is your dedication and commitment to your spiritual practice. That is unequivocally the highest form of offering that you can give anytime, any place. Extend the miracle, extend love, and come home to the truth of who you really are. All right. Thank you. And I will talk to you very, very soon.